Hello and welcome to another episode of Attacking Third, a CBS Sports soccer podcast. I'm Sandra Herrera, lead NWSL writer for CBS Sports, joined today by Lindsey, former U.S. international and guest of Attacking Third. Today's episode, we've got a midweek recap and a weekend preview. Quick reminder and also a programming note. Just to let everybody know, Lisa's out on vacation. She will be back, okay? And just to let you know, in the meantime, you can catch me and Lori talking about all things NWSL and Women's Super League. And you can watch all of our Attacking Third episodes, previews, recaps, and interviews on YouTube. Subscribe to our page to get notified whenever we go live at youtube.com/attacking third. Lori, thanks for doing this with me.
Yeah, good to see you. Always happy to be joining you.
I thought I was gonna just be here by my lonesome, Lisa going to get some R&R, which is long overdue and well deserved. But I'm happy to be here to chat all things soccer with you. And to got to say, got to get it in, got to get my Viva Mexico in real quick. Shout out to everybody celebrating the Independencias. Whoever you are, wherever you are, a lot of wonderful regions and countries celebrating this day, this week, this month. So everybody get it in where you can, when you can. How you been, Lori? What you been up to?
Yeah, good. Busy week. So can't complain. I mean, we all are. I know you are too. So, but yeah, it's been fun. Have college season starting. So just went to Clemson, but had a Kansas City local broadcast on Wednesday against your Chicago Red Stars. It's a huge win for you all, which we'll talk about in a second. But yeah, it's good.
Yeah, we're gonna chat about it. We're gonna chat. There was midweek action, so we got to recap that a little bit, and we got some games to preview, a couple picks that we're gonna make. We're gonna go through the NWSL games because we're like in the real thick of a playoff push, quite frankly. Right, not even final month anymore. It's like really like the final weeks of the season, and then we've got a couple Super League matches to talk about with everybody. But let's start smack dab in the middle of the week. We had two games. I know we're both excited to chat a little bit about them. Let's start with North Carolina Courage versus Angel City FC. Just to remind everybody, Lisa and I both picked the Courage, and they went ahead and they took all 3 points in this game. A narrow scoreline, though, 1-0. Caroline getting the lone goal. Dabinia providing the assist in this one. I remember when Lisa and I were chatting a little bit in the preview for this game. She was wondering if maybe this was gonna have a ton of goals, a little bit of back and forth, but we were also curious with the whole the midweek aspect of it, how it's sometimes these games can set you up for expectation, and then you're like, oh, that was a draw or a 0-0 draw on top of that, right? So I was a little what are we gonna see here? But I thought we had some pretty good exciting moments in this match, and it turns out it was you just needed one. You just needed that moment of brilliance for a certain team, and it came by way of the Courage. A lovely build up just ahead of the hour mark. You had Dabinia leading the way, linking up with I believe it was Diana Ordonez before she laid it back off for Dabinia to pass it in, and that's all they needed. That's all the Courage needed for this one to get all 3 points.
Yeah, I've been thinking about this team the last couple of weeks actually, and I think we all knew that listen, I mean, you're not wrong about by any means that this could have potentially been a wide open goal scoring fest, just given some of the games for North Carolina as of late. I say that kind of in quotes in terms of the last month or so. There's been some wild games for them.
Oh yeah.
But, I mean, I think once we knew that they started coming together, you have Ordonez, who's obviously been playing lights out. What an incredible season she's had. But then Dabinia and Caroline linking up as well. So I think I say it's going to be hard if this team doesn't get into the playoffs. I think that they have been good. Obviously went through the lull, right, and needed to clean some things up. But it does feel like they've gotten a little bit stingier defensively, which is where they're getting stretched. And now North Carolina, my goodness, could have had some more goals in that game too. And there was some questionable, whether there was a penalty kick or two for Angel City. Certainly have that argument. But I had North Carolina going into this game as well, just given where they are in the playoffs, or sitting out right side of the playoff spot, and knowing what's on the line for them.
Yeah, winners in their last 3 matches, so they're on a bit of a streak of their own right now. I mean, they've won 5 out of their last 6, let alone 3 back to back right now, and I think when you're looking at sort of the landscape of teams right now, kind of going on runs, like you got to look at the Courage and say they got the hot hand right now, right? Or the head or the feet or whichever way they're scoring.
All of it.
But they're the hot team right now. And then just sort of having like these games take place in the middle of the week when you're going up against another team that's in the middle of kind of a playoff push, somebody like an Angel City, and this game and where it kind of leaves them, it didn't maybe do too much in terms of bumping up either Angel City or Courage, obviously, but it gets the Courage, in terms of the standings, they're within a point, from that 7th place spot, and then you've got Angel City still just sort of sitting in this outside looking in. They've been there for weeks. It just hasn't. They just haven't been able to kind of get the results at the right time. We'll just say that, in order to kind of make that leap into the upper half of the table. For a very, very long time, they were staring at that number 6 spot, in which it was Chicago kind of hanging out there for a number of times. And it was anywhere from like a 3-point window to a 2-point window. And now it's a 1-point window. Now it's a little bit more cushion based on this other game that we're going to talk about. But, I still think even with some of the small adjustments that we saw from either side, I think, not starting Matthias, obviously, didn't necessarily look like the Courage were ailing too much on that side of the pitch. But then you look for maybe the Angel City side of things, maybe not starting Charlie, perhaps, knowing that you've got the quick turnaround and that you're still in the middle of this playoff push, like how you want to utilize her or rest her in a match heavy week. I don't know. I do wonder if maybe she gets to start in this match if things look a little bit different. What do you think?
Oh, yeah, certainly. I mean, I think she provides such a different threat overall to this Angel City team. I think, one thing that we've seen, or we did see early on, once they've had a ton of their injuries, was including Charlie, they didn't really have anybody that could get in behind for them. And now Charlie's has that ability to have a vertical threat. She opens up the game, obviously so good to get on the end of crosses. So yeah, I think that would have posed a totally different threat for them in this game. But I do think it's the same thing that we've seen a little bit in the next game that we'll talk about with Kansas City. When you have these back-to-back games, you do have to manage players, right? Especially when you need to manage the minutes, manage the players, depending on their injury history previously as well. So I would imagine that would have been some sort of conversation leading into this game. But yeah, I think at any time in this season, with how high the stakes are, and obviously both of these teams looking in from an outside point of view, you got to go with what you can, right? Like you just got to put out the players that are going to get it done.
I gotta say, even though it's a loss, it's a narrow loss for Angel City. I thought Herrera had another really good game in goal for this team, and I think maybe that's the painful side of it. It's like maybe you'd rather like have like the big scoreline and be like, ugh, we totally had a trash bin Wednesday game. Like who hasn't had one of those in this league? But it was such a close and kind of like narrow, kind of at times end-to-end type of game where you have a goalkeeper like Heritage kind of coming up with these like massive saves. It's hard to believe that Angel City might have been down very, very early in this game. Caroline had a very good opportunity where she split the center backs in the opening minutes there, just narrowly missed. But Heritage coming up pretty big with a couple of saves down the stretch. And, I do wonder if that's going to be enough, for this team, to be able to still kind of stay in this race, right? To still kind of make things interesting down the stretch. A lot of times there's that mentality of like, hey, if you got a solid goalkeeper, if you've got that kind of like target striker, like you have a shot, right? But I just don't know. It's like as each week goes by, it's like a new person. It's a different type of champagne problems where it's like, hey, it's like you've got a number of people who can maybe score on Angel City, but there's also still no like one direct target at this moment. So you kind of are looking, I think, coming out of this game, we're looking at that team that's hot right now, that's on a streak, that maybe you're kind of like, ooh, I don't really want to go up against them right now, versus a team that is kind of, doggy paddling a little bit, trying to stay afloat, kind of still make sure that they're continuing to stay relevant. And before we go into the picks of this week, we'll maybe do a little bit of a standings update to give more perspective, because the other game that took place during this midweek match, Laura, I'm excited to talk about this one. Just to remind folks, we did make the picks. Lisa had this one picked as her draw. And of course, I went with the home side. I chose Chicago Red Stars. They take all 3 points in this match against, at the time, first place Kansas City. Current 4-0 was the scoreline in this one. You had Tatum Milazzo with the goal, Mal Pugh with a couple of goals, and Kowalski with a goal as well in this one. Lori, listen, I could talk all the time about the Red Stars, but I want to hear what you got to say.
Yeah, well, I was actually on this call because I do the local broadcast for Kansas City. So, and what a fun match. I mean, obviously, I don't think Kansas City's going to say, hey, that was a fun match for us. But I think we all kind of knew coming in that this was going to be an interesting one, just in the fact that Kansas City had just played Gotham on Sunday. It was a quick turnaround for them. Chicago was coming off 2 extra days of rest, playing at home midweek, as we have seen. And listen, they stole all the goals from that Angel City and Carolina game. They're like, who cares what's going on down the road? We're going to take all the goals. But listen, Mal Pugh, my goodness, lights out. I mean, what in the world? It is. I mean, I'm not surprised. It's just good on her. I mean, it's so fun to watch. And it's one of those things too, where it's like, you almost can't miss. She's so smooth, just floating around, making it, taking players on, so confident. I mean, it's just so fun to watch. And I think serving balls in on set pieces for the Kowalski goal, right? So it's just, incredible to watch. And, I will give Kansas City, I mean, listen, there were some good moments. I think in general, you have to think about this game as like, hey, maybe there's no good losses, I would say. But in some ways, when you're sitting in the place that you're sitting, we know it's the fine margins in the playoff race, but 13 unbeaten streak, right? They hadn't lost. Maybe this loss that you take, and then you're just like, okay, let's get back on track. We can take some good aspects of that game. There were some good bouts of possession for them. I think we heard Chris Petroselli say it. They were pinned in the Chicago Red Stars quite a bit. And for Kansas City, maybe take those losses, understand where you had some good bouts of possession, you created some decent chances, but then also where can you be better? Because you conceded 4 goals, and 2 of those were on breakaways from Mallory Pugh that went on some excellent runs, and 2 were set pieces, right? So those are some of those, like at least on the set pieces, you can clean up, and you just got to take care of business in terms of marking. But I mean, listen, I continuously be am impressed by Chicago, because regardless if they are pinned in, defensively, they work hard as hell. The team together, right? That create those opportunities for Mal Pugh to be able to, even if you don't have complete control of the game in terms of possession with the ball, you're controlling the game out of possession. And that's with the amount of injuries they've had, good on you. I mean, I'm like, keep going. Like, it is.
I love that you were on the call for KC locally. Like I went in and I took in this game locally. So like watching it from the press box, first of all, like, yes, of course, like Mal Pugh's goals were incredible, right? You just sort of, you walk away either being reminded or introduced to, the level of play that she brings on the pitch. I think over the course of like her couple seasons with the Red Stars, I think, for those of us who cover her locally, we're still looking for maybe that extra component, not so much from her, but maybe, the idea of like having a collaborator, steady collaborator kind of work off. And we've seen some pretty, some cool moments between her and Bianca St. George's specifically. But watching these sort of individualistic kind of performances from Mal Pugh, which she kind of had these moments of like, I'm going to take this game and do it myself. Like, I'm going to take this moment, take this ball and kind of do it myself. And we didn't get that just once, but we got it twice in this game. So I'm just kind of like, I'm like, how do you like come away from a game like that and not maybe look at the landscape of individual awards like down the stretch and like not maybe consider somebody like Pugh in like, at least to have like a case. I'm sure there are like maybe 2 to 4 players who probably have stronger arguments or stronger cases for like an individual award like that. But you're looking at a game like this and where she's coming out with those 2 type of goals where she kind of just created these incredible runs to get in in on goal, but also she could have had 2 assists in this one, quite frankly. So she had the one on the Kowalski goal, but this earlier one that kind of broke things open for Chicago by Milazzo didn't get credited with the assist in this one, just because I believe it took a touch off of a defender. But the service in that she's providing and on some of these set pieces, like really, really, really good stuff. So it's just kind of like wild to imagine that it's like actually she could have 2 assists in this one, you know. So it's just kind of like watching this one, I just kind of like walked away with that feeling. And I feel like maybe even in North Carolina, you could look at a player like Davina, or you could look at a player like Caroline. And I think the argument that maybe goes against that is the fact that like they have unfortunately, like these are all like players that have unfortunately not had they've had double duty. They've had like international duty, they've had like club duty. So it's like like you, when you think of MVP and stuff like that, like you think of the actual, you know, minutes and game amount of games or starts that you have for a team. And then when you look at Caroline, like you also have to consider like the injury that took her out for quite some time as well. But I thought this was one of those games. I think these are one of those games where you circle and you're like, oh, like what do you mean like a player A, B, or C has a case for MVP? And like this is maybe like one of those games. And I think it's important, I think, for a team like Chicago, who had been hanging and hovering around in that 6th place position for so long, kind of having a game like this to build off, like knowing that they're going to say we're going up against an upper half table team, a first place team, a team that we have a lot of familiarity with. These are teams that played each other already in the Challenge Cup, you know, at least once prior in the regular season. And walk away with confidence. And I liked hearing that, I think, from Chicago's post game, like you mentioned with Petroselli, saying like, hey, like there's things to take away here. We got really pinned in, but we were able to still kind of keep the score up on them. And I think Rachel Hill echoed some similar sentiments where she was just kind of like, it's good because it's a young team, you know. Like I don't think people realize how young of a team Chicago is, because they're kind of like split in the fact that they've got a ton of players who have been with Chicago for a long time, but they also got a ton of players on the other half of that roster that are like first year, second year players. So talking about confidence is one thing, but it's about, like Rachel Hill was talking post game a little bit about combining those things and like having confidence at the right time for a team is very important. So we'll see. I mean, it's going to be interesting to see how like these the Courage and the Red Stars kind of come out of their midweek matches. I'm you know, looking ahead a little bit to what they've got over on the weekend. We'll see if they'll continue to make their runs, and we're going to make a couple of those picks, quite frankly, and we'll break everything down after a quick break.
The UEFA Champions League. 9 months of heart-stopping, hold-your-breath exhilaration. While Mbappe shines in the city of lights, Benzema's racking up the hat tricks, and the Reds want Mo Magic in Liverpool. This ain't amateur hour. This is the best of the best of the best. This is the UEFA Champions League. Stream every match live on Paramount Plus.
All right, let's make some picks, Lori. We're gonna put you in the spot. Lisa and I do this weekend and week out. We're gonna keep chatting about NWSL. We've got a full slate of games this weekend. Let's start off with Friday today. So make sure you watch this game a little later. It's gonna be kicking off at 7:30 Eastern time. Racing Louisville versus Orlando Pride. Lori, you know, when I'm looking at this one, I think you got 2 teams in different areas and different phases of their season right now. You've got Racing, who are, you know, officially eliminated from contention in this season, and you got Orlando Pride, who have cooled off a little bit. They've gotten knocked down a few pegs in the standings, despite going on that really long undefeated streak of their own when they went ahead and I think it was 7 games with Seth Hines as the interim. And now they're kind of, you know, hovering around 9th place, and there's the potential for them. They are now perhaps on the brink of elimination. So some interesting things maybe in this scenario. Perhaps we're going to get a Louisville side that wants to play spoiler a little bit. You know, if I can't have it, you can't have it. You know, or maybe we'll see Orlando Pride come out here and play with a little bit of urgency, quite frankly, because they're hanging on to this season. But, you know, when I'm looking at these two, I don't know, Lori, I'd hate to say, like, use my draw like this early in the episode, but I'm just not too sure what we're going to see out of these two teams. How about you?
I don't want to choose a draw either. That's the thing. I'm like, don't do it. Because I actually don't think we are going to see a draw, but I'm right there with you. I think, you know, Orlando is going to know the urgency they have to get out right on the front foot away from home, keep their hopes alive. But then I think there's also something to be said for a Racing Louisville team that knows it's been a tough season, but I still think when you look at like Nadia Nadim, McDonald, you have DeMello, like some of these players, I mean, those are players that are tough to pin down, right? So, and when you know you're out, sometimes you're playing a bit freer and you're like, okay, here we go. We have nothing to lose. Let's go out. Let's have some fun. Let's put on a show for our home team. So as much as I love like the playoff push and going with, Orlando Pride as they're looking on the outside in.
Yeah.
I think I'm going with Racing Louisville.
Okay. I like it. You know what? I respect it, quite frankly. I think you gotta play for, what you're playing for now, I think. Right. I think maybe that's what's coming into play for me, where I'm like, I don't really want to use John this one. I think, it's like you have to look ahead to next year. You've got to try to utilize what's left of these games to kind of maybe build up for 2023. And, I think when you look at this racing side, you look at them and say, okay, there's some good young pieces here in the midfield specifically, what they've got with DeMello and Howell. They've got good veteran pieces, right? And somebody like a Nadeem or McDonald. And they made a good kind of mid-season move for Chinese international Wang Chuang. And I'm just kind of like, okay, these are like good pieces.
Yep.
But can the coaching staff get it together? Like I think this is also, quite frankly, I think this is a little bit of a continued audition for the coaching staff as well. Like what is this team going to look like for these final few weeks of the season?
What's the identity, right?
Here to look ahead and then see into 2023. So I think maybe that decisiveness will be helpful for a team like Racing right now in these final weeks. It's like, okay, we're not going to the playoffs, but maybe we got to play for our lives a little bit here and then continue to move forward. So I think maybe this one might be narrow. I think we might get another one of those 1-0s like we saw in the midweek, but I'm going to go with Racing in this one as well. Washington Spirit versus Gotham. The Spirit technically not eliminated, but still on the brink, right? So many things coming down to the wire here in the final weeks, but they're going up against New Jersey, New York, Gotham FC, who are eliminated from contention, and maybe a little bit of a similar argument, right? They know what they're playing for now.
Yeah.
Season's done. Let's start building for next year. Do you have a winner in this one?
Yeah, okay, I do have a winner, but listen, I think these are tricky games.
They are.
I think both of these teams, in particular Washington, I mean, we can make a huge argument for that.
Massive win.
Where they are in the standings doesn't at all showcase their level, right? Or potentially where they could be, right? And I think you can make the same case, and I did in this for Gotham as well against Kansas City on Sunday. Is I think it was a huge win for Kansas City because they knew that they're going to come out against a Gotham team at home who are much better than their record actually shows, and just kind of continue to put themselves in a bit of a hole, a PK that didn't need to be drawn, I think, or conceded against Kansas City. So this is a Gotham team that I think is still they have some pieces. Taylor Smith, I think, has looked at really bright. He's added a lot, especially if they're going to play potentially. I think they could go out in a 3-5-2. And I thought they looked good against Kansas City in that formation. So I'll be curious. I do think, though, still going with Washington. I think, with the talent that they have, it was a huge win against San Diego. And I think that they're forced to be reckoned with. And I think they know this is one of those teams though where like, listen, Gotham's going to come out because they're like, we've got to get a win. Like, goodness, how can we not get a win here? But I think for Washington, they're going to be like, we still have playoff hopes. There is a slim chance, right? We're going for it. And I think they will.
Yeah, I'm going to go Spirit in this one, but this is another one of those games where I'm like, maybe this one has a mix of straw. You've got the Gotham side right now is like, they're showing some things. And this is a different team. I think that we've kind of, been watching over the last recent weeks versus maybe their June, parts of their July, tons of their August, right? It's a little bit different. The body language is different on the pitch from this team. The competitive level from this team is a little bit different when we're watching them go head to head. I mean, there's been a couple of games here now where they have just tragically let the scoreline, get away, but they've been narrow, like they haven't been, potential wins, but they've almost been not losses, right? Like, which is like different. Like getting a result could have been like huge, I think, at this point, this phase of the season for this team that's trying to build, for 2023. So I'm a little bit curious about how this is gonna play out. I think maybe you've got a Spirit side that's gonna be playing with a certain level of urgency, right? Hey, we're technically not eliminated, right? They've got to literally win from here on out, and a bunch of other things around them have to happen as well. So the only thing they can control in front of them is to win. Yeah. So I think you've got two teams with two very specific assignments. You've got one that knows they've got to win. You've got one team that knows, hey, we're not going to the playoffs this year. We gotta build for next year, and I think it could bode well for a good game. So I'm hopeful for that, but I'm going to be going Spirit as well. We got to look ahead to Saturday, though. We've got massive amounts of games happening. Triple header. We've got North Carolina versus OL Reign kicking things off at 7:30 p.m. Eastern. Lori, we were just talking about the Courage. What is it about this matchup that might be one of the bigger matches of the weekend?
Yeah. Well, honestly, I think it's a huge game for North Carolina, right? Because still in 8th place, as we mentioned, and like looking out from the outside. But I think for OL Reign, I think my only question mark about OL Reign recently has been a little bit defensively, right? Conceded some goals. Yeah. We saw them go ahead against Chicago on Friday, and then Chicago come back and tied that game on the road. And so those are my only question marks. I mean, I think with OL Reign, they have, just as much talent, obviously, as like this North Carolina team in the attack, especially. So I think this could be a bit more of a wide open game, maybe what was anticipated over the midweek game for North Carolina. But I think this one could. But I think with this OL Reign North Carolina game, this feels like such an important game for either team, right? To keep OL Reign securely in that hunt, in the mix, push them even higher up into the standings, or for North Carolina still knowing that, like, if we win this game, then we're tied with OL Reign in points. So there just feels like something about this matchup with the way that these two teams play. They both want to attack with numbers, right? They can attack in transitional moments. That feels extremely important and exciting. And I like the way that these two teams play. I mean, earlier on, OL Reign was in the championship for me against Washington Spirit. We understand what the Washington Spirit is right now. There's still a chance, but with the way North Carolina's playing, and again, if you look at the trio up top that we've talked about, Caroline, Dabinia, and Ordonez, I mean, I think that is a trio that's so difficult to deal with right now. Because if it's not one of them, then it's the other two, right? If it's not two of them, then it's the other. It's the other one, right? So
I'm with you. I think that's what I'm going to be looking at in this game. The fact that you've got players on either side of the ball that are like kind of these gamer type of players, like the player that can absolutely just turn a game on its head, like in an instant. I mean, we literally saw Rose Lavelle do that against the Red Stars. They were playing from behind after going up early, and all of a sudden the Red Stars are up on them 2-1. And Lavelle just gets on the end of this ball, just says, I'm going to do it myself, and like scores this ridiculous screamer from distance, right? And I just am like curious if this is going to be another one of those games. But I'm also like keeping an eye on it, because it's like, well, you've got one team that's coming off of a short rest, a quick turnaround, and a team that's coming off some time, and maybe something like home field helps in that aspect, where you're not maybe doing the traveling. You just sort of go through your routine, as a typical player. Like at home, it's like you don't have to worry about that kind of stuff. But I do wonder if, like, looking at the places on the table right now, right? You've got a number 6 versus a number 8. Is this possibly like a playoff preview? It's like, it's funny to maybe like think about that. There's a possibility of that, considering the numbers here in which they're in the standings, with so many, with only a few weeks to go. Like, is this a possible playoff preview? And some people maybe who are more casual fans might be like, no, there's no way this is a playoff preview. But it's like, you've got one really hot team going up against an upper half table team who largely, the Reign have mostly been in the upper half of the table for large parts of the season. And I'm curious about how this matchup it looks on paper, but more curious about how it's going to unfold on the pitch. Definitely curious to sort of see the coaching matchup in this one between Nahas and Harvey, because Nahas has shown he's not someone who's afraid to maybe make a rotation here or there, or try to slot in some different players in, depending on the opposition's personnel. So I'm very curious about that. But I think I gotta go with a winner in this one. I think I'm gonna go with the Reign. on this one, just because I think they're still going to be playing with a certain level of urgency. I'm sure they're going into this one not happy that they dropped a little bit in the standings, and I think maybe we're going to get a little bit of a an energetic playoff picture, kind of esque game in this one, and so I'm going to go Reign in this one.
Okay, I like it. The reason why this game also, and I'll make this quick, is exciting to me though, is because I think if you look at the particular matchups, I think of like Huerta, who's had an excellent season, right? She likes to get into attack. That's when she's most successful. We see that same with Carson Pickett. They'll be on the same side. And both of these teams have shown that, like in transition, they're very good. So I'm curious to see how this game opens up in that way. Or do we see maybe in North Carolina who's playing at home? Yes, obviously they're going to go after it, but play a little bit more conservative defensively and look for those transitional moments. So I'm curious how this one plays out, to your point about a little tactical coaching aspects for both of these teams. But listen, I'm going to have to use my tie on this one.
All right. I respect it. I like the energy. A draw might not be a bad thing for either of these teams, quite frankly. We've got another one kicking off on Saturday. This one at 8 p.m. Eastern. It's going to be Chicago Red Stars versus Houston. God, it's like these games are just getting like more and more, I think, kind of headliner the more we go down this schedule. Again, another possible playoff preview in this one. We've got Chicago Red Stars versus Houston Dash. Chicago are going to be the hosts in this one. How do you see this one playing out, Lori?
Well, listen, I laugh because sometimes when preparing for these podcasts and stuff, I'm like looking, I'm like, okay, well, that could go anyway, right? Early on in the season. And you're exactly right. You're looking at it and you're like, wow, this is the Chicago Houston. All of a sudden, it could be a real barn burner as well. So, yeah, I'm going with Chicago. I know that Chris Petroselli was saying, hey, listen, that wasn't their best game. Doesn't know if it was a statement win or a midweek against Kansas City. But I think it was. I think we've known about Malpugh. We know what she can do. She's still like dynamite. That's no secret. But I think that they have to continue to build, and they're finding ways to get results, even if Malpugh is doing amazing things on the field and doing it, on these like 90-yard runs. Okay, but like everybody else is playing their part. There's a real team unity. That's not taking anything away from Houston. I just think that there's something about the Chicago team right now that, is making it difficult. I even think about like the Kansas City game. Yes, Kansas City had a lot of the possession and they pinned them in, but how many real clear opportunities did they have? I don't know if you could say that they did really, right? Yeah. They had to settle for some outside shots from Haley Mace, some opportunities that I think in the end were easy grabs for Alyssa Nair. And a lot of that to me is credit to the first and second defense for Chicago. And I think they're going to make it life really difficult for teams. I don't think they give a lot away in transitional moments. I don't think they give a lot away in behind, where I think this Houston team can thrive. Yeah. With that said, though, I mean, listen, when you have players like Sanchez, when you have Ebony Salmon in the form that they have been in, then I think that you have to understand that, right? And so I think there's going to be moments where Chicago's going to have like lock it down defensively and just not play pretty. However, I'm giving the nod to Chicago in this one. Given the form.
Look, music to my ears. You like it? I love it. I am curious about it. I do wonder if this one has the makings of a draw, right? Again, we got a team coming off a midweek action. Really kind of a match heavy week, having that game against the Reign, then having that game against Kansas City, and now having a game against Houston. I'm a little curious if the legs are going to be there in this one for the Red Stars, which might bode well for a team like Houston. Look, we've been high on Houston on this podcast. I think one of my reactions about Sanchez when she had that screamer of her own in the previous match was like, I can't believe that a player like Sanchez hasn't been named to a team of the month in the regular season. Yeah. But something that's happened with this Houston team is they've cooled off a little bit. I think they've plateaued a little bit coming into this final month. This is not a time in which you want to do that. They're winless in their last 3 games. They've got 1 win in their last 4 games. So they're staying competitive, right? A lot of these have been draws, 3 draws in their last 5 games. So they're still picking up results, and they're still a very difficult team to go up against on the right day, right? But I'm curious if this is going to be that moment in which perhaps they get back to winning. Again, you're going on the road, but you're going on the road against a team in Chicago that, like I said, have had a couple games under their belt already. So I'm wondering in the areas if it's going to come down to more individual battles, or the Red Stars are that kind of team. Like you said, they are pretty sound defensively. I think in that previous game against Kansas City, I think when they went up 3 goals, I was like, what you should do? You should just take Malpew off right now.
Yeah.
And they weren't even up 4 goals at that point. My mentality was just like, if there's one thing Chicago can absolutely do to another team is organize you to death for a solid 20 minutes.
I saw that.
And I was just like, that is a thing. We don't know nothing else about Chicago. We know that for sure. So I'm curious again, like how the phases of this game will go, whether it's in the first 15 minutes or the last 15 minutes of this game. So we'll see. But look, I came in my gear. I'm not, and I've been doing this for the last several weeks. I'm not choosing against Chicago in the last month of their regular season. Red Stars all the way. I hope they pick up the win and we get to talk about another one for them. Let's keep it moving, though. We've got San Diego Wave FC versus Angel City FC. This one's closing out Saturday's action. This one's kicking off at 10 p.m. Eastern. Little NWSL action after dark. We got 2 West Coast teams going head-to-head, 2 Cali teams, California Clash. Who you got in this one, Lori?
Well, yeah, I don't even know. This is going to be amazing. 32,000 fans there. I mean, this is going to be electric. It is going to be so fun.
A sellout Snapdragon.
Yeah, it is. I mean, we've seen these matches. I mean, what was it? Was it a 2-1 victory? If I remember, the Angel City had back in July against San Diego. So that was a massive win for them in that rivalry. I'm going with San Diego. They're playing at home. We see the form they're in. They didn't have a midweek game, so it's less travel. We've seen, the kind of common theme of this podcast has been some of the midweek games and what's that going to do in terms of legs and managing minutes for some of these teams. And so I am going to go with San Diego. I think Herrera will have another huge game and she'll help. But I think just with the form, I don't think San Diego. I think they're going to be pissed about that loss to Washington.
Yeah.
And I think they're going to come out and they're going to be fired up with this home game, a rivalry to what their neighbors up the road have presented at Bank of California. So this is going to feel real. I think I do give the nod to San Diego. It will be about, and both of these teams will know this, but I think managing those moments early on as well, because that is going to be half the battle. And that's one of the reasons why I think I give it to San Diego is because the amount of minutes and the travel that Angel City has had this week so far. And then another road win, even though it's a short distance, or another road game, even though it's a short distance. Mm-hmm. But that's going to be a lot of energy in that building. I think there are going to be Angel City fans, no doubt there, but it's going to be a lot of energy to manage. And I think when you play three games on the road in a week, knowing what's on the line, and the form that we've seen some of these players in, if it's not Alex Morgan, then you have some other players stepping up as well.
Yeah, I thought that game
against Charlotte, for instance.
Yes, right. I thought that game against the Spirit was thrilling if you're like a neutral, right, of the league, or if you're just getting exposed to something like NWSL. It was like the perfect chaos game to be on big network CBS 4-3 scoreline. But look, they have sold out this San Diego Wave match against Angel City. We lost Lori for a second, but this is my pick, so I'm going to go ahead and keep making my pick. But they sold out Snapdragon Stadium. They have targeted this date for a long time. At first they teased the ticket sales and they said we're hovering around 27,000, and then they came out with another release saying that it's a sellout for sure, that they push that. And listen, I don't think you build that up to go ahead and set that up for you to lose that game. I just don't see San Diego coming out here and having this type of environment, having this type of match, a regional rivalry type of match, and not come out here and try to get this win. Now, I don't know if it's going to be one of those wild score lines that we saw like they had against the Spirit, but I do think they have the makings of a win in this one. We have seen this team be able to generate and create their own goal scoring opportunities when they have been on the ropes. And I think even if it's a big day for Herrera, again, I just feel like the Wave are going to find a way, quite frankly, in this one. Like you said, whether it's Morgan or, really like what we saw out of Amir Ali over this season, especially out of that previous game. I think these are players who can cause problems, quite frankly, for that back line. So we'll see. I don't know if it's, like I said, I don't know if it's going to be the blowout, but I'm really, really, really hyped to see this type of game broadcasted with that type of environment around it at Snapdragon. So I'm going with the Wave in this one as well. We've got one final game, the lone headliner for Sunday, Kansas City Current versus Portland Thorns. This one's going to be kicking off Sunday at 5 p.m. Lori, are you going to be on a local call for this one?
No, not.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thought I'd ask.
Yeah.
Who you got in this one?
Oh, goodness. This is a tough one. I think this is, I want to go with Kansas City. I think 3 games.
Draw. No.
Yeah, exactly. It is a draw. That's what we're going. I think the tough part here is, though, again, the common theme, 3 games in a week for Kansas City back at home. I think there'll be a great fan base. Portland with extended rest, and they're going to be without Elizabeth Ball. Yellow card accumulation. I think she's been a huge piece of that defense. And now credit to Kansas City because they've done a really good job of integrating some of their young players. LaWare's getting minutes back, so she can slip in there seamlessly. I would expect AD France to be back in goal. Cassie Miller getting the start against Chicago midweek. And AD France, you could put her in the MVP category as well for what she's done for this. So you know what? I really think it just depends on who's going to show up in this game. I think that it could be a really interesting battle. And this is, as I mentioned, it was an important loss for Kansas City midweek. But at the same time, when you look at, so I think no issues in terms of them bouncing back with like what they've done and the firepower that they have up top themselves. I do think missing Elizabeth Ball is a big piece for them. However, especially when you think about the attack and Sophia Smith and Sinclair, right? Yasmin Ryan, what she's added. The list goes on, right? Crystal Dunn's is back, got her first minute. So that is a tough group to go against. However, sometimes I think, I'll put a little twist on it. Some of these back-to-back games are important, right? Yeah. And it's a quick turnaround after a loss. You don't have time to dwell on it, and you get right back out on the field and put that behind you. So I am going with the draw, and I'm going to go with a high-scoring draw. It's not going to be high-scoring, but I'm going to go with 2-2.
I love it. Listen, I was saving my draw for this one. I hate to close it out with a draw, but listen, there's something about these sort of top tier, top upper half of the table type of teams who are going against each other at this phase of the season, right? I think there might even be a little bit of like, you don't want to show too much of your hand, this close to the playoffs. There's enough footage, I think, out there of every team at this point where you can sort of adequately prepare for the opposition. But I think looking at these two teams in particular, teams who are, in the hunt for that shield, in the hunt for that first place position to secure one of those buys straight to the semifinal. I think we could get a competitive match in this one. But I think because of that, we do have the makings of a draw. I think having somebody like French back in net is going to be massive for the Current going up against the Thorns. And they've got more games under the belt at this point right now, leading into this actual match day than the Thorns. So maybe there might be a little bit of time for the Thorns to get, reacclimated and going up against a team that kind of comes out at them with a little bit of urgency. So I would imagine that this one, with all that kind of maybe has the makings of a draw. I would like to see, what what Hamilton and what Kaiser, can provide in the attack, and the other side of things with Sophia Smith and who she is and what she can do as well. So those are the battles I'll be looking at. Kaiser, Hamilton, Smith, Ryan. I think those are areas that a pitch people should be paying attention to in this one. But I do think it's going to be a draw. I would love for it to be wild though, like maybe like a 2-2 or something like that. So we'll see. We'll have to come back and revisit these picks. We want to show some love though before we close out the episode, welcoming once more FA Women's Super League to Paramount Plus. Games were postponed last week, match day 1, in light of the passing of Queen Elizabeth II. And because of that, games will now start to officially get underway. So we're excited to officially welcome games onto Paramount Plus after the brief pause in morning. And there's the wonderful highlight card here. You can watch games on Paramount Plus and CBS Sports and Network. We're going to run through some of the schedule here that's going to be on this weekend. You've got Arsenal versus Brighton and Hove on Friday, kicking things off at 2:30 p.m. Manchester United versus Reading on Saturday at 7 a.m. Eastern. Aston Villa versus Manchester City. That is a Paramount Plus exclusive game on Sunday, 7:30 a.m. Eastern. You've got West Ham versus Everton Sunday at 10 a.m. Eastern. Leicester City versus Tottenham at 10 a.m. Eastern, and Liverpool versus Chelsea Sunday at 12 p.m. Eastern. That is also a Paramount exclusive. So you can catch these two games, Aston Villa and Manchester City, Liverpool and Chelsea on Paramount Plus. Let's make a couple picks for those games, Lori. Well, let's have some fun with it before we close out. When you're looking at Aston Villa, Manchester City, you got a winner in this one?
I think I'll go with Manchester City. I think they'll be fighting. Want to get back up there, rival Chelsea. So how about you?
You know what? I want to say a draw in this one. I want to believe that it's going to be. I want to believe that like Manchester City's not going to come over here and just roll over Aston Villa, right? I think we had it was cool to have Sophie Lawson on the show. We talked about that a little bit, and she alluded to that, like, hey, like sometimes things can get predictable, in certain games, and a team like Aston Villa obviously has different resources than a team like Manchester City. But I think getting a player like Rachel Daly, maybe will shake things up and maybe make things exciting. They don't have the best record against Manchester City, and on paper, Manchester City has acquired a lot of exciting players to sort of, go off onto this next campaign for them. But Gareth Taylor, I don't know if he can put it all together. I've struggled with some of the choices that he's made as a coach in this team in recent seasons. So I think maybe the technical match day 1 of it all, perhaps there might be some rust, that maybe might lead to a little bit of a disjointed game, maybe lead to some interesting score lines. And while my gut is telling me to go with Manchester City, I want to choose a draw because I want to manifest competitive match. Liverpool versus Chelsea, though, I have a feeling you and I got similar picks in this one. I'm going with the Blues in this one. How about you?
Yeah, same, Chelsea. I mean, I think this will be a fun one. I mean, just given everything that you just said too, and I think these teams are ready to play, right? Yeah. They're ready to go. They've extended preseason, but it was fun to spend an extended period of time with Emma Hayes at the Euros, hear about her team kind of behind the scenes and the depth, and then be able to call their games at the WICC as well and just see them live. And I think there's incredible talent, incredible depth, and you have Buchanan that's going to be playing center back for them as well. So they've just added some pieces that they felt like they wanted just to up even the talent that they've already they've had. So I'm going with Chelsea. I think they're going to be the ones that are kind of like the hunted team. Obviously.
Oh yeah, they've got the target on their back for sure. They're consecutive winners at this point. Wild to even imagine that they still built on their roster even more with somebody like Buchanan. I'm curious the role that she'll play in this season. I think she's got a little bit of a knock going into this game, but I still think there's a ton there on paper for them in their roster to sort of go out there and take it to Liverpool. Liverpool just, making their return to Women's Super League. They've been promoted from Women's Championship, and former NWSL Boston Breakers coach Matt Beard leading the side there. I think it's an exciting time. I think if you're a fan of Liverpool, but I'm curious to see how they're going to line up against a massive team, a massive heavyweight like Chelsea. So we'll see if we were correct, and we'll take a look at those games closer when we come on back and link up with everyone. Thanks everybody for joining us and listening to Attacking Third. You download, follow, and listen to us anywhere you get your podcasts: Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, literally anywhere you get your podcast, you can find us. Subscribe to us on YouTube to know whenever we will go live. And the start of Women's Super League is this weekend. Watch it on Paramount Plus. And Lori and I will be back on Monday with so much more. For Sandra, Herrera, and Lori Lindsey, this was Attacking Third.